I've been behind the scenes of businesses across multiple industries, and I can easily discern when a business is set up for success. I can tell if the founder or the team has a capacity to grow. And so in my first video, I talked about the first sign that I can tell if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. And this is coming from an operations manager's perspective. And so, sign one, in another video, I talked about you actually execute on your ideas. So, you know how to turn an idea into an actual project, you know how to finish what you start, and you know how to determine what gets executed first. But this video is about sign number two. And sign number two is you're willing to look at what isn't working. Now, this is something that is not common. Again, I work with founders across different platforms all the time, and this is not always the case. Okay. And so I want to kind of break this down because this is a big one for me. Successful entrepreneurs are willing to look under the hood of their businesses. They're not skipping to the next thing and pivoting when things aren't working or making excuses for why something isn't working and why it had to be this way and why something was put together last minute. They are looking under the hood and they're willing to be accountable and fix what's wrong. Okay. So even when they suspect they're not going to like what they find, they're still willing, let me underline it, they're still willing to look and see what it is. They're willing to hire someone to come in and audit their business operations to identify every gap, every inefficiency. Okay. And so when you see something like this, I don't know why yours there. But this looks like you pay attention as the CEO to what your business is telling you. Now, if you do not have capacity as a CEO, you will not make time to do this. Okay. So let's just say you have 100 increase in 5 sales. What do you think you need to look at first? Do you think this is just the normal? This is just an effective conversion rate? Like, what are you looking at first? Because for me as an operations manager, I'm like, okay, if you got 100 people inquiring, but you're only able to convert 5 people and turn them into clients, that's something we need to take a look at, right? If your clients are asking you the same questions over and over and over again, I think that's something we need to take a look at. If your team keeps missing the same deadlines, we're doing the same work every single month with every single client, but your team keeps messing up at a certain point in the timeline, that's something we need to take a look at. If you're booked out, if you're making good money, but you're still working way beyond your actual capacity, we got to take a look at that. Your business is going to give you all the information you need about the gaps that needs to be filled. The question is whether you as the CEO is going to actually pay attention to it. Okay? Which brings me to my point 2 is a successful entrepreneur is not only just willing to look at what isn't working in their business, but they can also admit when they're the bottleneck. Let me spell that right. They can actually admit when they're the actual bottleneck. Don't get in my comments acting dumb, okay? Because the truth of the matter is sometimes the process is perfectly fine. Sometimes the tool is perfectly fine. Sometimes the team member knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing, but they're waiting on you. We don't like to take that kind of accountability as leaders. We're never, one of the things about 10 years ago that someone taught me was that the leader, a leader is always wrong. If someone on your team is wrong, you're wrong as a leader. Someone taught me that a long time ago. Like, the leader is always going to have to take accountability for what goes wrong in the business, in the organization. Even if it wasn't you, you have to speak to that client on what happened. If you're leaving it up to a team member to say, oh my goodness, I messed up, boom, 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 like, yeah, they should be able to take accountability too and take responsibility for what went wrong. But then also, you as a leader have to also take responsibility for what you did or did not do to cause your team member not to do what they were supposed to do. Right? I think great leaders take responsibility. They don't make excuses and they do not point the blame. Okay? And so usually what you find is successful entrepreneurs are willing to admit when they're the bottleneck and they are willing to make changes. So if your team member is waiting for you, if they're waiting for approval, if they're waiting for feedback, if they're waiting for a link, if they're waiting for you to make a decision, if they're waiting for you to answer the Slack message from 3 days ago, you are a bottleneck. And there will be seasons when, you as the CEO becomes the biggest operational constraint in the business. It's okay for that season to come, but it's not okay for that season to last. Successful entrepreneurs can recognize when that's happening and then they begin to make adjustments. All right. And then the last point I'll say to this sign is a CEO who is willing to look at what isn't working is also willing to fix the recurring problems at the source. Like, you have some people who they like deal with the symptoms of the thing. They never address the actual root cause or the root problem. They only address the symptoms. And so one mistake happens, cool, we fix it. But then the same mistake happens every week. That's a pattern. And when you recognize patterns, you now got to go and deal with the root of the issue so that the pattern doesn't continue. All right. So maybe you realize, maybe there's no SOP. Maybe ownership isn't clear. Maybe your onboarding process is missing a step. Maybe the workload is unrealistic, because I've been behind the scenes of businesses where, because the CEO is interested in revenue increase in sales, that they take on more than they can chew, and the workload becomes unrealistic to the capacity that the team has. Okay? Or maybe your client was never told what happens next. A communication issue, an onboarding issue. Or maybe you have 5 different tools doing 5 different pieces of the same process. There's some duplication there. We need to now do a tech stack audit so that we can determine what tools do you actually need, what can you eliminate, and what's just a duplicate. Okay? Successful entrepreneurs eventually stop putting band-aids on recurring operational issues, and they begin to start asking, why does this keep happening?